the last half hour of this program tonight, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Robert Newton about some of the latest discoveries when it comes to health and longevity, especially with the idea of immortality. There is a lot going on when it comes to the idea of your thought, of course, being things, and that those things can help you live for as long as you want to. In this first hour, we are just now coming to understand who the new leadership in Iran is. Well, there's a party that's stationed here in Los Angeles that maybe doesn't agree overall with the elections of Iran, doesn't agree with the leadership of Iran, and feels that somehow the culture, the Persian culture of Iran has been smothered, has been hijacked, and that they are the authentic party that looks for Iran to come back into its original genesis as the open, progressive, and incredible Persian heritage that it has had for centuries. On the line, we have Roozbeh Farahanipour. He is with the Roozbeh Farahanipour Party, Iranians for a Secular Republic. He is joining us here in this first hour to talk about the elections, to talk about his party, to talk about the future of Iran, and help us understand what we are seeing on the news, because maybe it's just like how people see Americans. They think that we all were with George Bush. They think that our president and our government represents the people. And maybe that's the way we see Iran and Iranians. Maybe we just do not understand the rich culture, the rich diversity, and the internal struggles that are happening in that amazing country. Roozbeh, thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on KPFK.
Thank you for inviting me on your program. And good evening to all of your listeners.
Well, you know what? I had the great opportunity to meet you at a World Affairs talk at Cerritos College this past semester. Excuse me, audience, I am fighting a little bit of a cold, so please excuse me. And I was so happy to see someone coming and breaking down the actual history, breaking down what has been lost, and just helping build a much better perspective on the Middle East, on Iran, for American students. Could you start by talking a little bit about your background?
Sure. I was a journalist in Iran and back to 90s. And on the famous student uprising on July 9, 1999, I was one of the leaders of the uprising. And actually, that was the first time I heard the name of the new so-called president in the Islamic Republic. At that time, the President Rouhani was the person who ordered the crackdown on the student uprising, and who was the person to order to arrest the leadership of the peaceful demonstration in Iran. And one of them, that was me. And they put us in the jail, they tortured me, and then after that I escaped from the country. I came to the United States as a political asylum. And after 12 years, I must still keep my status as a political asylum.
Are you saying the president that has just been elected in Iran, Hassan Rouhani, is the man who ordered the crackdown on the student protests?
Yes, that was he was the secretary of the National Security Council of the Islamic Republic at that time in 99, and his infamous speech is still online on the Persian or Iranian websites and the regime website as well. If you just search his name and the student uprising, his speech comes through, and you can find it on the search engines. And we try to transcribe and translate his speeches in English for the anniversary of the uprising, and we can distribute it through the Facebook, Twitter, and all of the social media. I'm not sure if the American media, the larger media, they would like to promote the real face of the new president of the Iran after that much investment of the State Department and Western country under Rouhani to be elected.
Well, it's interesting. I'm looking at an article that was in USA Today talking about the parallel between Mohammad Khatami and how the West came to see him as this soft-spoken cleric, etc., who turned around and was very oppressive of the Iranian people, and that they suspect that Rouhani is the same. And it kind of sounds as if these individuals are taken out of a single pool and put up front and given these labels, but somehow they all turn out the same.
Unfortunately, that's true, and we got shocked when we saw all of the Western media, including the American media and the European media, and including even the Israeli media, looked like it should be against an enemy of the Islamic Republic. They changed their tones before the Rouhani get elected, and all of their stations become like campaigning for the Rouhani, and in the Persian language and English language and European languages. And all of them, they're promoting Rouhani and try to label him as a liberal mullahs. And unfortunately, his background is very clear, even though everybody knows most of the talk and pressure on the regime is not because of the human rights violation. All of the Western countries, including the U.S. and Israel, they just scaring from the regime and try to negotiate with them on the nuclear program, not because of the human rights violation. And we really need the people, individual people in the world, try to show the violation of the human rights violation inside the regime. In 2013, again, the Islamic Republic became elected as a first enemy of the journalists in the world. But nobody talk about those things. And the Rouhani was one of the nuclear negotiators during the late 90s. And right now, everybody thinks that Jalili will be gone and Rouhani will be replaced as a nuclear negotiator or president. But we think, and I think, that should be the new play from the regime as a good cop, bad cop for the international community. They know nobody cares about the human rights, and they try to continue the nuclear programs. And that's the best scenario. They have a good cop, the Rouhani. Everybody like him. Right now, that's a Western country fell in love with the Rouhani. And the bad cop is the Jalili. Anytime they cannot go anywhere, the Jalili should be the face of the regime. And anytime they want to buy the time, that's the Rouhani will be the new face.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I'm really shocked when everybody talk about the election show in Iran. Right now, I assume everybody forget about the past, forget about the 10th elections. All of them that was mixed with a fraud, and that was not a true election and fair election. And now somehow everybody believes the Islamic Republic become a fair country, and they show that the election was fair, and the people vote for the Rouhani. And obviously, some people, for the situation, they chose Rouhani to vote for him. I respect for anybody that chose to vote for him. But in other hand, nobody talk about the people who has a right to vote, and they boycott the elections. And also for voided ballots, even though with the number of the regime himself, they announced it. The regime announced 17 million people, they had a right to the vote. They didn't go to the vote. And including 1.8 million of the people, they just vote for the voided ballots. So if you count and add these two numbers together, they show how many people they decide to don't go for the voting and play with the candidate of the regime. So 8 million of the people, they decide to boycott the election. And none of the media, international media, Western media, nobody talk about the numbers of the people who decide to don't go to the vote. You cannot find anybody, any numbers through the liberal media, to hardliners or ultra-right media. nobody don't like talk about this issue. The reason, probably they have a different reason. Some of them, they're hoping the Hassan Rouhani, Mullah Hassan, he can taking care of the nuclear issue. The other part thinking about doing the business and many different issues that's probably happen, and don't let the international community see what's the real and inside of the election.
On the line, speaking with Roozbeh Farahanipour, he is with the Marze Pour Goha Party. He is here as a somebody who is a political asylum here in the U.S. He was a part of the protests in Tehran in the 1990s, and it was Hassan Rouhani who ordered the crackdown on the students at Tehran, where 4 died and hundreds were injured, and went after a witch hunt on journalists. And Roozbeh is a journalist, continues his work here. Let me ask you, sir. So basically, before my re-identifying you, you were saying that there was a huge vote of no confidence against the presidency, and was it against the choices? What was the vote of no confidence? 8 million people not participating in this election about?
18 million people by the regime numbers. Regime always cheating on the election. But even though if we want to accept the regime numbers, 18 million people, they are not going to the vote, and they boycott the election this time. So that was exactly more than the numbers of the vote of the Rouhani. So if we want to count it, the first vote, that was for boycotting the election, and second vote was for Rouhani.
Oh, very good. So is those 18 that did not vote, why are they not voting? Is that because they felt that they did not have a choice, and how did they believe that the elections were rigged?
Okay, the people who didn't go to the vote, they have a different reason, and some people like me, we don't believe in the system at all. We don't believe that any election the regime held, that's a fair election, and that's one part of the people. The other people, the people think that the Guardian Council pre-select some of the trustable candidates for the election shows, and they don't want to be part of the play of the regime. And some people, they have emotionally got hurt through the regime. For example, that's Neda Agha Sultan, the lady got shot middle of the demonstration 4 years ago. Yes. And most of the people saw the footages, and that was a very sad footages. The Western media trying to labeling, especially the Voice of America, said the Neda's family, they went and voted for Rouhani. And the same night, the father of the Neda came on one of the TV station, European TV station, and said, when the regime didn't kill our daughter, we never vote for this regime. How come you think we're going to vote for the regime after they killed our daughter? And even the Sohrab Arabi, other martyr who got shot and killed on the after election movement and demonstration in 2009, his mother said, after the regime killed my son, I never go to the vote. And other one, that's the blogger Sattar Beheshti, his mother said, even the regime killed one of my kids, my sons, and I have only one daughter. I'd rather to dedicate my daughter to the movement than go for vote for regime. So they have they have a different reason to decide don't go to the vote. And as I told you, some of the people, I really respect for the people chose going to do the starting the minor changes through the vote. They think if they go participate and they use the rights for the election, that's part of the people's mind, and I do respect all of my compatriots, even the people who go to the vote for the candidates inside the regime.
Certainly, yes, you can understand that everybody is going those of conscience trying to go in the same direction, and doing as their conscience says, either to cast a ballot or to not in protest. Hopefully, those voices are heard, and your voice certainly is being heard here on KPFK. And fortunately, when you talk about the media not letting it known that 18 million had a vote of no confidence but not casting a ballot is incredible, and fortunately you get to get that out on a station such as KPFK and more, sir. So thank you for bringing all this truth. Would you give us a history lesson? When we saw the 2009 protests in the street. I don't think people understand the divisions of who was protesting who in Iran. Could you give us the background as into the struggle for what you're struggling for in Iran?
At the 2009, the people after the election show, and the people had a feeling the regime cheating as always. They came to the streets and they tried to show they are not happy with the way the regime running the country. They are stealing even the people they chose to participate in the election show in the system. And when the regime is starting to crack down the uprising, that was exactly 10 years after the famous student uprising in 99 when I was in Iran. So this time, as soon as the people mass demonstration happened in the countries all over the cities, the other people who didn't decide to go to the vote and boycott the election, they went to the street and backing up other people, Iranian people. We as Iranian people always backing each other regardless of the political views, and we always try to see the best for our country. For example, when the Saddam Hussein, former Iraqi president, attacking Iran, all of the people in Iran, they got united together versus the Saddam Hussein at that time, regardless. Nobody liked the regime, but defending the country. That was a separate thing. And at 2009, that's happened, the same thing, the people backing each other. But unfortunately, at that time, again, I want to do the exception, and thank you, your station, let us to talk. But most of the media at that time exactly tried to gave some direction to the movement and show to the people of Iran trying to bring another moderate Islamist the value for the country. Exactly the same thing they try to show in the Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Syria. That's the same scenario they try to do to show the people in Iran, like other part of the Greater Persian Gulf region or Middle East, they try to choose another moderate Islamist government, and they are looking for another system who believe in moderate Islam. Nobody talk about the secular groups. Nobody talk about the secular people. They're demanding their rights. They want to believe in the equality for everybody in the country, regardless of the gender, sex, religion, ethnic, language, anything. We believe in equality for all of the Iranian people, and we believe the Iranis belong to all of the Iranians, not one particular, one moderate or the moderate Muslims or any other people. We, as an Iranian people, has a right to run our country any way we like, and we don't want to international governments or the media come and try to guide our movement, and instead of just report the truth and the original things happen in the streets.
Could you talk a little bit about the demographics of Iran?
Sure, that's the majority of the country by the numbers is the Shia Muslim, but nobody, that's exactly like the number of the election. Nobody talk about how many percentage of the Shia Muslim in Iran, they are secular Shia, or they just label as a Shia, they born in the Shia family. How many percentage of them, they really study the religious studying the religious demand or religious things they have to do. And even though the regime many times claim the people, 90% of the people, even though they are not doing the namaz every day. So they show the demographic of the people versus the propaganda is they are not, they are secular people, they are not a fundamental Shia people. And we do have a Sunni people, we have a different part of the Islam, Muslim people, we do have a Christian, two different kind of the Christian, we have a Armenian and Ashurian, we do have a Zoroastrian people, that's a religious that's born in Iran now, they have mainly that's in India, and also we have a Jewish people and Baha'i. The Baha'i people, they are the people, they don't have any right inside the country at this point because of the Sharia law. Sharia law don't count the Baha'i as even the second-hand citizen. So that's the basic description of the situation.
And when you look at the secular section, when you look at the history of Iran having a Persian culture versus now what you have as a Muslim culture, how do those two coalesce or conflict?
Okay, if we're going to back to the story right now, that we can see the Cyrus the Great Cylinder, that was the first person in the world who declared the secularism, who was the first person said, if any country, any religion the people have, they have a right to study their own religion. We are not allowed to force anybody to change the religion or stop studying their own religion. That's in the historically, that's Cyrus the Great, that's our role model. And right now, that's even on the Security Council of the United Nations, the copy of the cylinder is there. And the original cylinder keep in the British Museum. And right now, the British Museum landed to United States, and that's in the touring United States and should be here in LA, I assume, on November. That's a very great opportunity for everybody. They can go and see the original cylinder, the first person in the world who declared the secularism, and they can see with their own eyes the real declaration of the secularism in the world. And if they're back and recently in the recent history, the Prime Minister, Dr. Mossadegh, who was the legal Prime Minister in Iran, unfortunately, the Prime Minister Mossadegh, they overthrown by the coup of the CIA and bring back the Shia Shah in Iran, the king of the Shia King Shah in Iran on 1953. And that was one of the main reasons. After that, the clerics and the grassroots Islamist groups, they get a chance to grow up inside the country because always Shah thinks they can keep the religious people and the mullahs as a ally instead of the nationalist people. So at the 57 years after we saw the result and the mullahs hijacked the whole country, and when the people came to the street and chanting for the freedom and independence, the media helped Ayatollah Khomeini to hijack the revolution at that time as well. So I don't want to blame anybody. That was the fault of the people to let Ayatollah Khomeini did that. But anyways, he got lots of the help and from the international and Western media at that time as well.
And Dr. Mossadegh, was he secular?
Yes, he was a secular prime minister at that time. And even one of the reasons the coup got successful was because the mullah and the religious institution, they get allied with the Shah and with the CIA operation inside the country. And even though on the documentation, they showed how much money they distribute middle of the Muslim institution, Islamic institution at 1953.
Who would have been your choice for president in Iran?
None of the pre-selected of the regime choices.
Is there someone that's standing up that is being smothered or being made impossible to run?
The thing is, I don't want to label anyone because at this situation, under the fundamental dictatorship, none of the grassroots group, they don't have a chance to promote themselves. They don't have any right, even though outside the country, in the Persian media funded by the foreign countries, they don't let the people to come and promote their own agenda. First, we need to create a system or let the people talk from the new generation. And I'm sure we have tons of the educate and responsible people who can take over the position. And many of them, they can be discovered by the people after they can promote and talk about their own agenda or their program for the future of Iran.
What kind of coalesce do you see going on between the Western powers and Iran? I mean, I know that on the front of it, you see the You see them putting pressure and sanctions on the nuclear program, not linking it to human rights at all, the very same thing that we do with China, with their trade policy and things like that. But at the other hand, we hear reports of very wealthy Iranians that house their money in the United States, some of the leadership, and some of the deals that they have with Western countries, etc. Do you track any of that information?
Yes, unfortunately, that's the news came through the media, and they led to leak the news for the community. That's kind of the difference with the real story. If you look at the real story, we saw that was there's the United States and Islamic Republic. Officially, they don't have any diplomatic tie. What the meaning is, and they put a sanction on the Islamic Republic. None of the Islamic Republic diplomats, they don't have a right to leave 12 miles far from Washington, D.C., office of intersection of the Pakistan embassy, because they don't have a right to have their own flag inside the United States, or 25 miles far from the United Nations. In other hand, we saw the administration led them to hold the election inside the United States and this year. That was, they had 19 illegal ballots inside the United States. And instead of even though they don't have any diplomatic relation, in each ballot they had 3 official diplomats holding the ballots. They had the official stamp of the Guardian Council from inside the country. They had the official ballots they printed inside the country, and also they had the Islamic Republic flags in 19 different parts of the United States, from the Los Angeles, in Houston, and the different states, far from the 12 miles, more than 12 miles far from the office of intersection. And this time, even that was worse than the before, because every time they gave them this kind of the promotion and led them to exception and waiver to do this diplomatic activity. This time, even they gave them the local PD protection versus the demonstrators. This time we don't saw any organized demonstration, but every time we had it. Before that, they announced this time the local PDs, LAPDs, and others, they gave protection to the regime ballots inside the United States. The other part, they tried to label him as a PhD holder in the law, but obviously his PhD of the Dr. Rouhani or Mullah Hassan Rouhani has a long story, and that's a fake degree. The media try to claim Rouhani he's not only the clerics, he has a educational skills, and he has a degree, PhD degree from one of the Scotland universities.
Yes, just seeing that. It's now talking about how he plagiarized his PhD.
Yes, he plagiarized from the Mr. Hashem Kamali. His thesis was printed on 1980s, and he labeled it as 1998, represented to the college.
Oh.
And that was, right now, that's, everybody that's ashamed to talk about this issue. And even though that's worse than that, on his promotional program he produced to ask the people to come for vote for him for video propaganda he promoted, he mentioned he was a doctor, or he holds a PhD on 1977. And the Slovak intelligence service of the Shah Times was following him because of his PhD. And then, when the people saw he don't have a PhD, he claimed he had a PhD on 1999. And at the same time, he plagiarized the Hashem Kamali's thesis. Exactly the same time, he was secretary of the National Security Council. He was an international nuclear negotiator, and he was different official position at the Islamic Republic. I don't know how come someone, he should be really Superman, can manage all of them together and at the same time writing his PhDs.
Well, that's incredible. They're even in the article saying if he was even at the university at all, how much time he spent there. So, maybe it gets assigned to one of the underling mullahs at that time. But obviously, they just counted on the silence of the media and being able to once again clamp down on free speech and free access to information to save face. But now in this digital age, fortunately, all of those borders are being blitzed. But we need to talk more about that with Roozbeh Farahanipour. He is with the Roozbeh Gohar Party. He is on assignment, not by choice, in the United States as a political asylum member here in the United States. We have lots of individuals that come for sanctuary, and we are so happy to have him on the lines here on KPFK. This is KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.5 in San Diego. We stream worldwide at kpfk.org. Make sure and visit projectnext.us. And also, our great website is kpfk.org. We'll be back in a moment. On the lines, Roozbeh Gohar's party representative, Roozbeh Farahanipour. The website is www.marzehpourgohar, and that's MARZEPORGOHAR.org, MARZEPORGOHOR.org. Could you talk a little bit about the name of your political party?
Sure. The Roozbeh Gohar, we chose it to translate it in English as the Iranians for a Secular Republic, but the original meaning, its closest translation is the Glorious Frontiers. The Glorious Frontiers, the meaning is that Iran, during the time we had a system, we're proud of it, not at under the dictatorship of the mullahs. And the Roozbeh Gohar got established in July 8, 1998, 15 years ago. And 1 year and 1 day after that, we were a portion of the leadership of the student uprising at the July 9, 1999. And the regime arrested some of the leaders and people who were involved in the MPG or Roozbeh Gohar. And after that, after I got released on the bail from the jail, I escaped from the country, came to the United States as a political asylum or Iranian exile. We have three different kind of the Iranians here. We have Iranian American and the people, the Iranian American with the Iranian background or grassroots, and also we have an Iranian exile here. And also, some of our other members or leaders, they got killed, assassinated, or executed by the regime in the last 15 years. One of them, that's Dr. Castro Wafadari. He was a history professor at the Paris University. He got assassinated by the regime in 2005 at the Paris at his home. And we had other martyrs, Yaqub Mehnahad, one of our party members. He was a blogger who got executed in the Zahid and Iran, Baluchistan. So and we still continue to struggle. Our people and our friends and colleagues continue demanding the right inside the country. We are a peaceful organization, and we believe in secularism. And we believe we need to find a way to continue our struggle, and we can take the country back from the hand of the regime who culturally occupied our country. And that's our simple demands, and we ask international community and individual people try to help us just promote the news, the real news, not the label news. They came from the grassroots people. You can find it through the social media is available for everybody. You can follow the Twitter, the Facebook pages, and many other individual bloggers from inside the country and outside the country. Iran is one of the best and the most active country on the blogging. That's, I think, the third country they're doing the blogging. Most of our generation, they are young and everybody educated, and they know how to use the social media and blogging system. So that's not hard to just follow the people, individual and grassroots people, instead of to listen to the branding media.
And so how are the people surviving under these sanctions?
As I mentioned you before, any economic pressure happened, the regime tried to blame the sanction. But in the reality, when the regime find a way to import luxury cars like the Lamborghini 2014, Porsche 2014, Mercedes, and even the Rolls-Royce inside the country, so it's not for the regime to bring other things. The main problem is corruption of the regime. And the regime find a new way to blame anything on the sanction. The sanction that works if we look at the history during the time of the South Africa with the leadership of the Nelson Mandela. He is in the bad condition in the hospital right now.
Yes.
And who was the sample of the great a sample of the sanction, how is that works? If the people supporting the sanction is the last step of the non-violent activity. But if we want to just blame it or label it as a sanction and under the table doing the business, just make the money for the mullahs or the family members of the regime agents. As political issue I mentioned a few minutes ago, how come the regime to get a chance and get a visa for 16 diplomats came across the United States, how they can bring the money to organize the election under this hard sanction here.
Yes. I guess what I meant is, what are the shortages for individuals? Is there enough food? Is there enough fuel? We're hearing about shortages going on in Egypt right now, people having to wait in line hours for fuel, etc. How is it, affecting everyday life?
In Iran, we are sitting on the third country as a main sources of the oil in the world, and one of the main sources as a gas in the whole world. But unfortunately, the situation regime created for the people, the regime tried to use most of the money for their own agenda outside the country.
Okay.
For example, in Syria, they spend our people's money to supporting the Assad forces versus the demonstrators. And the people are struggling hard, and the prices increase. The inflation is unbelievable in Iran.
Okay.
But I think still that's kind of the playing of the regime, try to show they are under the pressure, and with one of the reasons the regime could ask the people to come to the vote to get some breathing room for the people if they remove the sanction. But in the reality, there is not a real sanction. That's a corruption and stealing the people's money by the regime officials. That's the main problem in Iran.
So you don't support the Iranian regime supporting Assad?
I am, and our groups, we are standing with the individual secular people inside the Syria. They are voiceless like us. They are fighting against the dictatorship of Assad, but they are different from Al-Qaeda and the Salafi people, who are very dangerous people. They are in the street fighting against Assad, or who are the Muslim Brotherhood people. I think they have if you do a very small search on the Google, you can find the voiceless people who are fighting from both sides, like us. They try to keep their country safe from the dictatorship of Assad and the dangerous people, like the people who killing in front of the camera, and you know how they are dangerous. We are not supporting the fundamental people in the street, but we are supporting the real freedom fighter in the Syria.
Yes. Could you give us your view of what has been happening with this so-called Arab Spring, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and some of them are quite a mess. Libya is such a mess. And, you know, Syria is going to be such a mess. And I don't see how they think it's not going to spread into Jordan and Lebanon. And here it is surrounding Israel. And Israel's talking to Iran when it's their neighbor, you know, with Egypt, with the Muslim Brotherhood. I do not understand this geopolitical banter looking at Iran when this Arab Spring has brought about fanatic leadership in countries very, very close to Israel.
Yeah, that's first of all, I don't know who labeled this action as a spring, because I didn't see any close to a spring or any fresh air for the people.
True.
I remember in the demonstration organized inside the Egypt, I was in contact with some of the Egypt secular freedom fighters. I told them, okay, be careful. We already passed through these things. After that, make sure nobody come and hijack your revolution. And now we are saying President Morsi took over the power there. But all of the situation there, I have no idea why the Western country supporting the fundamental, uneducated, and barbaric groups to take over the power there. And sometimes the people or the media try to show the only thing from the democracy is the ballot boxes. Yes, the ballot box is the last step of the democracy, not in the first step of democracy. And the way we are dealing with these people, I don't know, the Muslim Brotherhood in the Libya, in the Benghazi, killing the American diplomats and American ambassador. At the same time, the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria got financial aid from the American. I don't know how that can happen. Well, I cannot digest those kind of the conflict. At the same time, they label the Syrian uprising with these kind of the fundamental people as the Arab Spring. And the Bahraini people, they came to the street, they got killed and tortured worse than the other countries. And they just, Western countries said, you know, that the people, it's better starting to talk with the regime and they solve it somehow peacefully. And they are not even to let the media talk about the demonstration happen in the country like Bahrain. And after those mess in the region, so what's the result? So it's the most stable country in this region. That's Islamic Republic now. Who is the winner? That's the mullah in Iran, because everybody see, okay, how is the situation in Afghanistan? How is the situation in Iraq? How is the situation in Syria, in Libya, in Egypt? So most stable country in the region is Islamic Republic at this point. So it's better we're going to negotiate with them. We create kind of the Islamic Chinese model to doing the business with Iran, and we forget about the human rights. And the only thing that, if you look at read the middle line of the news, the only thing the Western countries demanding from the regime, that's just negotiating on the nuclear program. They don't care about anything else at this point.
And what do you see of Saudi Arabia? Some people say that this whole violence going on in these states is a Sunni-Shia war. Do you agree with that?
Unfortunately, the Saudi Arabia gave the huge financial aid to all of those groups, and they're supporting those groups because they try to show and acting as a kind of the godfather of the Arab countries and the region. And they have unlimited access to the financial oil monies. They can spend it any way they want. And they try to, in the Arab League, many times they try to support and arm the fundamental groups in the region, and even though the Arab media like Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya and others, they're supporting and promoting, even sometimes with the fake news, to promoting those fundamental groups, and they label it as a freedom fighter versus what's the reality of the inside the groups.
Well, it was interesting on WikiLeaks and the Assad files. It did come out that that Saudi Arabia was expressing interest in taking over Syria's central bank and in taking over their insurance pool, which means just taking over the assets of the public at that point. And that was some years back. That was in WikiLeaks. And you're talking about us giving money to Egypt, and we know that Saudi Arabia has financed a lot of this violence that possibly could have been a part of the killing of our ambassador too. So it's something you must your jaw must drop at seeing the amount of criminality and corruption that is so blatant that is happening right in the Middle East.
Yes, and unfortunately, at this point, the same timing right now, their main financial source of the Syrian opposition fundamental groups, that's Saudi Arabia and the Arab Leagues, they try to supporting them or gave them the equipment, missiles, even the training, and where they get trained to fighting on the high-end light missiles or anti-tank missiles on those Arab countries. They gave them the training and workshops who can fighting against the other groups. And nobody in the West and Western media talk about the real people. And that's exactly like my country. It's not hard to find the real people and the secular people and democratic people. They just try to give the peace and a democratic situation to the country that's more safer for their own country and the safer for the neighbors and also for international community. And we don't need to spend lots of the tax money on those countries as well.
I'm seeing a news report, Iran ready to suspend 20% uranium enrichment. Is that one of those fig leaves that behind it, who knows if it's for real?
I agree with you because the Mullah Rouhani, he is not taking the office yet, and Jalili still is a nuclear negotiator. They just try to show the international community, everybody get changed, give us some breathing room, we need to do some exchange money, and let us to do some business. And in the Europe, they removed two of the Islamic banks from the sanctions. Now it's starting to doing the banking with the Western countries, the Islamic Republic, from the 2 days ago. So all of the news came, and everybody said, "Oh, see the Rouhani, what he's doing. He didn't take the office. He didn't even take the swear in the Islamic Parliament yet.
Right.
Still 3 more months needs to Mullah Rouhani goes to the Parliament for taking the office." That's a kind of the propaganda and label the situation. See, after election, everything get better. Right now, Iran should be heaven and this and that.
Were you disappointed with the reaction of the Obama administration during the 2009 uprising?
We believe and we like the moral support from all of the international community. And we believe any changes happen that should be came from our action and the people's activity inside the country. But the other hand, when the U.S. Send a message, peace message, or supporting any democratic activity or democratic uprising all over the world, why the Iran should be exception? That's the things we get a little upset. But his message was not really effect on our demanding the freedom. The main problem was censoring the media in the West. and they showing the different things and labeling the fake movement as a real movement inside the country. That was the real things that bothering us. This time, after the Mullah Rouhani got elected, the White House sent a greeting message to Rouhani, or Secretary of State John Kerry sent another message. Even the President of Israel issued a message and congratulate to the Mullah Rouhani. That was shocking why all of the country did that. But at the same time, that they have a right to choose any way they want to run their country. That's I understand. We understand everybody thinking about their own system, their own country, and supporting their own country, demanding and defending their own interests. Nobody believes any foreign country has to come and defending Iranian interests versus the Islamic Republic. So that's the people's job, Iranian people's job, to do that. But we need to at least get the moral support. If the Mullah Rouhani get elected, receive tens of thousands of the messages from the international leaders, why the people demanding their freedom inside the streets, nobody's sending messages to them? Why nobody say this solidarity message to the people of the country?
If the mullahs are successful and build a nuclear bomb, what would they do with it?
I think that's with the buying the time of the regime, that's going to that direction. And as soon as they announce they have the bomb, I don't think anybody working anything versus them. They just starting negotiate. Now, how we can deal with the Islamic Republic with the nuclear bomb? They're the bomb on their hand. What the international community did with the Pakistan, what they did with the North Korea. So we have two different samples. Each of them, they get changed. The Pakistan, how much situation we saw that the European country or Western country, even United States, supporting the democracy activity in the Pakistan, or what happened to the North Korea. So that's Islamic Republic should be another sample, probably with different description. But at the end, we accepted on the international community, and everybody forget about the real demanding the people for freedom and democracy in the country.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right to point out Pakistan and North Korea, and that, they still get some sanctions, but it's such hypocrisy to try and stop Iran, because I've only seen this kind of unilateral aggression out of Israel, firing at Syria a couple of times, blowing up their nuclear what they thought was a nuclear hub in Syria, and then they went and just bombed them unilaterally again. And Syria did not respond to that, which showed amazing class to not escalate it. And so I think it's such a false premise to say that a country that's handling their future should be told by any other country and say that they would use it. And I think it's really disingenuous of Israel to keep pressing this. What do you see 5 years from now, or even in the next couple years, with what's happening in Syria, etc. And you see just some of the more recalcitrant mindsets being emboldened and supported in this way. What do you see on the horizon?
I assume in maximum in 2 or 3 years, international community see the real face of the Mullah Rouhani as a president. So see, here's another face of the regime. We made a mistake, like always. So they did the same thing with the President Khatami. They did the same thing with the other people. And I saw, and everybody saw, how come in overnight they removed the name of the Hashemi Rafsanjani from the Interpol wanted when they tried to label him as a new candidate in the system. So the international community always try to choose and support the worst scenario or worst candidate. And at the end, after a couple of years, they say, oh, we made a mistake. What can we do? Right now, that's in Libya or in the Iraq. And how much American invest on the Hamid Karzai or Hamid Kazari in Afghanistan.
Wow.
What's the result after this much years, many years after the decades? So really, Hamid Karzai defending the American interest there, or he's more close with the Islamic Republic now?
It's incredible how much money he has siphoned away, the CIA giving him all this money, and it's just going to his own personal bank account, and Americans are being maimed and killed by individuals dressing in, Afghan police uniforms. It's quite a quagmire. There was this, in the last closing minutes, this is something, a little bit of an offshoot. I was wondering if you could talk about what is happening to those Iranians that are in Iraq and have been in that camp and are being evicted. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, you're talking about the Liberty camp? That's the MKO camp?
Yeah, what is that?
Okay, that was one of the portion of the Iranian opposition group. They are another religious opposition groups, and they are armed forces. They were under the terrorist list of the United States for many years. And last year, the Secretary of State removed their name from the list. They are not on the terrorist list anymore in the United States. But they have a camp in the Iraq. That was in Ashraf in the beginning. That's other city in the Iraq. After the many year challenges, they moved them, transferred them to the Liberty camp. And from the Liberty camp, someone needs to help them and push them to some countries, give them the asylum. Regardless what they think, what they believe, they have a right to get transferred to the third countries. And it's not fair to people keep them in the Liberty camp. And it was time to time, the Islamic Republic is attacking them with the missiles.
Yes.
And I saw recently they started transferring them to the Albania or different countries. That's a good sign, but we need to speed up and transfer them into at least 10, 15 different countries. The organization tried to keep them there, the MKO, as much as I know they try to doing the lobbying to transfer back to the Ashraf camp. But for me, as a person who see the situation, the most logic and acceptable situation is UN speed up and give them the protection and asylum and split them to the different countries and send them to the different third countries.
Thank you, sir.
By the Human Rights Declaration, everybody has a right to get somewhere safe.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, our hour is just absolutely blitzed by. I've been speaking with Roozbeh Farahanipour. He is with the Marzipur Gohar Party. MARZEPORGOHAR.org. Sir, thank you so much for your continued fight for a secular Republic of Iran, and we look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Thank you for giving me this time, and thank you for promoting the individual voices through your radio station. And thank you for the listener to spend time listen my idea.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.